Yes, folks, it's the moment you've all been waiting for. This weekend's grand opening of Parlay Restaurants and Sports, located in Jing'an, Shangkang-li, your new favorite spot for barbecue, burgers, and so much more. Come out to watch all your favorite sporting events. Enjoy brunches weekends starting at 11 on our terrace. Test your skill at darts, pool, and golden tea, an icon bar classic. 9 beers on draft, the freshest barbecue cooked daily, and so much more. This Saturday, starting at 5 p.m., followed by our first brunch Sunday at 11. Parlay, we have you covered from kickoff to last call.
Hello everyone, Craig here. Welcome to another edition of the podcast, Tell Craig Your Story. Today we'll be speaking to Tim Chambers. Now, Tim was born in England, but now resides in Shanghai, China. Now, Tim has recently had a photo exhibition in Shanghai called Another Party. Now, Tim also has a very popular YouTube account where he does city public transport videos for Shanghai tourists. And he also did a video of the movie Empire of the Sun, where he goes to all the different locations in Shanghai where the film was made. And we also talk about the Shanghai Metro Challenge. And he challenges all the Tell Craig Your Story podcast listeners to do it, where they have to get on every single line of the Shanghai Metro System. But before we go, please go to our website. We're at Podbean. Tell Craig Your Story at podbean.com. We have a link tree which tells you where Tell Craig Your Story podcast is streaming. We are on all the major streaming services. We also have a YouTube account. Make sure you're subscribing and liking to get all the latest updates at Tell Craig Your Story. We also have VK for our Russian listeners, and WeChat and Little Red Book for our Chinese listeners. All right, this is my chat with Tim on Tell Craig Your Story podcast. Tim,
Craig.
welcome.
Hi, Craig. Thank you very much for having me on.
Started off, I noticed that you went to the F1 in Shanghai.
I did, although I didn't manage to make the entire race. I only went to the Friday session. The tickets were really hard to get a hold of for the entire weekend.
I would assume that, because they haven't done it for a couple of years, right?
Yeah, so I think it's actually been out, it was either for 4 or even 5 years. So
I was there at the 19, I think.
Right.
2019, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so I'm in a WeChat F1 Shanghai group, and we tried to get a group purchase, like 10 of us, and totally failed.
Yeah.
We were all arranged and put in the purchase right on the nail, right on the minute, but totally failed. 1 or 2 people got the entire weekend. I just went on the Friday session. But it was really good. It was good to see the cars, and it was actually quite good to see the race like on the TV, because you get to see...
Have you been to one before?
Oh, I always went to the Shanghai Grand Prix.
Right.
It's one of the cheapest ones on the annual circuit.
Right.
So I went to the Shanghai Grand Prix every year and a couple of times to Singapore.
That's interesting. Yeah, and you can watch on the TV and you go, yeah, that's good. But when you're there, when you hear the motors, I mean, they've been modified a little bit, but even still... Just to be there. I mean, Hamilton, the one that I saw, Hamilton he won very convincingly. Right. But yeah, what an experience. Yeah. So hopefully, as it gets on a bit of a roll, it comes to Shanghai more often. And they've got a guy from Shanghai now, haven't they?
That's right. So Zhou Guanyu, who he races for Sauber, and that was the first time that he raced on Chinese soil.
Right.
So there was a lot of questions about, why did it sell out quite so rapidly? And it was really, I think there was 3 answers. 1, hadn't raced for so many years. 2, first time Zhou Guanyu is racing on Chinese soil. And 3, the kind of Instagram effect or the Chinese alternative. So there was a lot of people that wanted to be seen to be at the race. Go back years ago, things like the Friday and the Saturday here in Shanghai, actually not that busy. And you could go to any stand that you wanted to because there were seats everywhere.
Right.
This year, much tighter.
Yeah.
You had to sit where you were told, a lot more security, and because it was busier as well.
Yeah.
But it was great, and I took my son along as well.
Hey, what did he think?
Well, he was interested, but there was a big gap. There was like a 3-hour gap between. There was a practice session, and then there was a sprint qualifying.
Right.
And he's 5 years old, so it's kind of difficult, keep him interested. But I think he did it. He got through it.
That's
so good on him.
Tim, tell us about your exhibition first up.
Oh, okay, right.
How was that recently?
Yeah, that was really good. So, what I've been doing recently is working on exhibiting some of my drone photos. And this really came, and again, there's some, collaborative elements to this. Yeah. There's a guy I know, Paul Copeland, and he markets himself as Xiao Baolo, Small Paul. And he's an artist that did a series of photos where he mimicked famous works of art when he had some spare time. And he was exhibiting in a wine bar called La Cava de la Oma, which is South American wines. And that got me interested in that exhibition space.
Right.
So I got talking to the guys there, and they said, please come and exhibit. And it's something I've never done, even though I had quite a library of drone photos from the last 5, 6, 7 years.
Only of Shanghai, or was it?
Yeah, not just Shanghai, but I would say 70 to 80% of what I've done is Shanghai, but also Hong Kong and a little bit of Singapore.
Right.
So there was this wine bar that Paul introduced me to, and they had an opening in November last year, and that opening closed because the owner of the wine bar had a friend who was leaving the city at the end of the year. So, and this is too much detail, but it was a case of, sorry, Tim, can't host you then. Why don't you do February, which was around the Chinese New Year?
Right.
But it actually worked out better for me because it got extended. So I basically did February and March.
Right.
So I think it was about 22 photos into the space. And the space has got 3 general areas. So it was mainly Shanghai, the city, colour. And then there was a background in black and white, and then also some nature shots as well. So we had an opening evening, and that went pretty well. We had something like 50, 60, 70 people.
Great.
And made some sales out of that,
yeah.
which was good. It's kind of sold off the wall. So it was actually a really good thing to do.
Because I saw your website, and it categorized it into like urban, rural. But did you also include your 3D models, or was it just the photos?
So I just did the photos in that exhibition. So yes, I was doing the rural and the urban, and then nature. I also did some photos of Slovenia. I used to live and work in Slovenia. And it was interesting because I thought that would be the more popular sales. I thought the nature shots, Slovenia, on your office wall in urban Shanghai, I thought that would be the real sellers. But it kind of turns out that's like, no, Tim, those are your holiday snaps.
All right.
It looks lovely, but I haven't got a clue where it is. So in fact, the Shanghai shots were more popular. And there was something else that I learnt, and again, I may be slightly incorrect here, but you were referring to the photogrammetry, the little models. So one of the things that I've done in the past is take many photos of, let's say, a building like St. Ignatius Cathedral here in Shujiahui, and then using a special bit of software that's called reality capture, which processes those photos, turns it into a 3D model, puts the texture on it, and then you've got a 3D model. Buildings are good. They're easy because they are still and they are well textured, so they work quite well.
Yeah.
The process doesn't work with glossy things and stuff, and it doesn't work well with things that move, like people.
Right.
So I've scanned only, I think, 3 people, and they have to sit absolutely still. And it takes me about 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's a real workout for me because I have to rush around them, and I have to take you need at least 120 photos from all angles. So you're on the floor, you're on top of them, etc., etc. And I make these little models, and they're about, let's say, 8 or so centimeters tall. And they come out in kind of black and white, or like a grayscale. And something my wife said was that, this will never sell because, in China particularly, statues, if you'll notice, they're only actually of dead people. Within the culture here, they don't have statues of people that are living.
Oh.
And so if you kind of said to somebody, I don't know.
Strange,
I don't know.
Strange way to...
Yeah, so it was like, I thought I would be able to find somebody, I don't know, a CEO that would want everybody to have one on their desk of the company or something like that. But, it's like, no, that it encompasses death. I think it's a still image of a person and it encompasses death. And also, it was the fact that they were black and white. And that's where I'll go back to where I was about 5 minutes ago. But the black and white photos of the city, so the drone photos now, not the models, I thought they would sell as well because they're these fantastically vast, dramatic images of the city, but they're in stark, harsh black and white. Didn't sell. Wow. And so there's something about black and white. There's something about that stark, sharp reality that doesn't really gel with the Chinese culture and what they find interesting and good looking.
So they want colourful.
So a lot of the colour photos sold, and the most popular part of my exhibit really was when it's the city. It's recognisable as the city, but it is softened. So the cityscape above the clouds, over in Lujad's Way, where you've got the super tools poking through the clouds, that does well. And then there was another one which was quite a large cityscape, but it was really early in the morning, so there was the morning mist. So those have, and oddly that one was black and white, but it's those that seem to have turned out to have been the most popular ones, where it's the city, but it's the soft city, so you can kind of put it on the wall and go, that's at least an interesting vista and not too harsh on the eye.
I'm just sitting here, just visualizing those pictures that you're just talking about. I can just see the time that it would take to do it. You'd have to have like the weather, you have to be at the right place at the right time, the clouds. How are you managing to do that? And do you need a certain drone?
A lot of people, especially here in China, a lot of people are flying DJI drones. So the one that I've taken the majority of my photos with is the DJI Mavic Pro 2.
Right.
Okay, so it's like the second generation.
Okay.
In that particular run, I mean, DJI is doing a fantastic job. They're doing a great job globally as well. And they've got different strains of drone. So the Mavic Pro strain is now up at like a level 3. And the level 3 Pro Cine, I think it's called, is actually quite expensive, and it's great, and it's got multiple cameras on it.
Right.
And then you've got like these minis and the mini pros that are super light, and so you can take them anywhere around the world. And then you've got other FPV, so first person vision, like racing drones, but they have those as well. So I'm still using the Mavic Pro 2, which actually I think came out in 2018, so it's old, and I need to upgrade if I can.
Yeah.
As far as back to your question about, when.
Yeah.
With the city, you do need to keep an eye absolutely on the weather. And the most important thing is the clarity of the atmosphere. So if it's nice and clear, right, okay, get the drone up. So often I would come back from work, and if there's a good sunset and the atmosphere is clear, it's like, right, I'm going to be late for dinner because
Right.
I'm going to go
Yeah.
up on the roof.
The time is
Dara,
now.
Dara said,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm getting myself into trouble here, but right, I'm going to go up on the roof and I'm going to go and fly the drone for 10 minutes and try and capture what we've got here.
Yeah.
Now, I know that might sound a little bit bizarre because I'm talking about misty photos. I mean, there's a difference there. There's the morning fog or there's the morning clouds, but you do still need the clarity of the atmosphere. So it's not like smog or fog. You wouldn't take a photo through the fog.
Yeah.
You'd rather get above that.
Above it,
In the past, I've been in situations where I've just been super lucky, press the photo button once, grab a nice vista, and you only see it when you're in, I use Lightroom, so it's not like Photoshop, but it's Lightroom, so you're just enhancing colours or turning things black and white. You're not actually doing any compositing, you're not changing the image apart from the colours. But often you would take the photo and then you would only realise what you had when you're editing in post, as it were. It's like, oh, actually, this is quite a good image. And so I would often have only one or two. And so the misty morning, I actually call it 6 a.m. because that's when I took it. That one was actually one shot. And it's been a really popular one.
Yeah.
Conversely, the other popular shot, which was when I was above the clouds, and that was in December last year, and we had a 1 week where it was super foggy the whole week. And I never had the above the clouds shot. And I knew that day, it's like, right, it's foggy, I am damn well going to go and get that classic above the clouds shot. And I actually flew for 2 days, and I probably took something like 60 photos and got some nice shots because I knew that I was probably never going to be in that situation again. But there's something more exciting about just doing it once and getting a nice shot. Doing 50 or 60.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, yes, next. It feels slightly different. If that's the more professional way of doing it, I don't know. But it's sometimes quite nice to just, take a shot. Yeah. And somebody at my exhibition, because I kept saying, oh, this was a lucky shot and this was a lucky shot. Yeah. And it was a Swedish guy. And he said, stop saying you're lucky. That's a nice photo. That's a nice photo. It's not luck. It's you. You have the skill to present this. Yeah. And so I've definitely learnt that as an artist, if you like. I don't consider myself an artist, but people were like, they're good photos. Put them up.
Yeah. How much is the natural photo and how much of it has to be photoshopped?
I would say it's probably about 80-20.
Okay.
If not more. I mean, you've got to have something. You've got to have the composition. You've got to have the clarity of the atmosphere, and you've got to have the subject matter. What I'm doing in Lightroom is usually just contrast, maybe a little bit of sharpening, maybe a little bit of noise reduction. Yeah. The above the clouds, there was a little bit of noise on the skyscrapers, so that helped. Just to make it look a bit better visually. So it's minimal editing. And it's dangerous because, of course, everybody knows Photoshop and, that's Adobe, and Lightroom is Adobe. I guess the photographers will really know Lightroom. Lightroom, you're not cutting anything out, you're not moving anything, you are literally just changing the image itself, as in light levels, contrast, sharpness, and that's it. You're not moving anything around at all.
Are you doing that, or are you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I do that. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Lightroom's pretty easy.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm absolutely no expert in it, and it's one of these things where you can get like a preset. So you do it once on one image, and then it can really save you a lot of time. You can just batch convert another 5 or 6 images, and you can just see how it is.
Got it.
So it helps save time.
Excellent. And do you have any exhibitions coming up in the future, or is there any?
Nothing specific like La Cava de Loma, and certainly, I need to thank them, and they change about once a month. So I know that there's been some other exhibits in that space.
Yeah.
I do exhibit currently a few photos in a couple of different bars and restaurants. So currently I've got just a couple in the Rooster.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And in fact, those two images that I was talking about specifically, the big hitters, as it were, the softer images. Yep.
Nice.
And also, I'm in the Ministry of Malt, whiskey bar up in the M50 art space. And there's a few more there. There's something like about 8 or 9 there. And there's one other place that was looking to have a few of mine. There's a company that I know called We Wine, and they promote wines, and they were interested in having a few. So I'm kind of distributing the exhibits into various other spaces.
Yeah, right. Excellent. And why don't you just plug the your website as well?
Sure.
That's where I went and saw these.
Okay, thank you.
Photo. And if the people that are interested, how do they go about finding it?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, just go to any of those places that I just mentioned. Obviously,
we'll put the links up.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not in Cava de Loma anymore, but they'll know of me. But certainly I'm in Rooster and I'm in the Ministry of Malt, and they've got my QR codes there and they know me. But also my website is www.timchambers.me. So that's where you can also see what I've exhibited and also some more other pieces of art there as well.
Awesome. I saw you had this video on your YouTube, which is becoming quite popular, if I do say myself. And it was actually very recent, this holiday. You took a photo of Hongqiao train station.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. You couldn't see the floor at all.
Oh, right. Yes.
It was packed.
It was. Yeah, that was this Labor Day weekend, which I think was it was last week.
Yes.
It was super busy. It was really busy. It actually felt just as busy as a normal Chinese New Year would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah. Well, I guess that 3 days. Can you explain it? I mean, you have a Chinese wife, so maybe you have some insight into it. Why do they do these Chinese holidays where they have, you got to work on a Sunday, then you have 3 days off, and then I've got to work this Saturday, 6 days. So I had three days holiday, but I've got to make up 2 days.
Yes.
So I'm only really having one day off.
Okay, and that's a real curveball because it really bugs me as well. And what really bugs me is the fact that, I mean, as you know, there are some holidays that are 1 day and there are some holidays that are 3 day.
Yes.
So let's just take the 1 day holidays. And almost always you'll get emails either from your company or your employer or the government saying, please enjoy your 3 day holiday, because they link it to the weekend. It's like, it's not a 3 day holiday. It's a 1 day holiday and a weekend.
Yes.
And the same thing goes for anybody that doesn't live in China. The same thing goes for these 3 day holidays. So, as Craig was just saying, more often than not, you'll have to work the previous Saturday and the latter weekend's Sunday, and then you've got a 3 day holiday in the middle, and then again your employer or the government will say, please enjoy your 7 day holiday, and it's like, well, it's not. The Saturday and the Sunday are paying for Monday and Friday, and you've got 3 days in the middle, and they add the other bits of the weekend on. So, and it's I can't explain it in any way that would be polite.
I saw also on your YouTube you had the Shanghai Metro Challenge.
Right.
Explain to me how this all come about. It sounds like a very interesting...
Okay.
Yeah.
So, bizarrely, how did it start? I thought I saw a YouTube video about the London Underground, where somebody had travelled on every single line, at least once on the tube,
right?
At least one stop.
Yeah.
But then recently I've tried to find that video and I can't find it. So whether that was just a figment of my imagination, I don't know. I'm not saying I'm the inventor of this game. I'm sure somebody's done it before. Yeah. Of course they have. So the rules of the game are you have to travel on every single one of the numbered lines in Shanghai, of which there are 18 at the moment, at least one segment. And honestly, 50% of people get this wrong off the bat. Oh, do you mean the entire line, Tim? No, I don't mean the entire line. Just one segment. Right. So it's really like it's a network analysis. So what method can you get through the map?
Way?
Exactly. So, and I don't mind giving people the route that I take, and I want people to take me on. I want people to challenge me.
Right.
I've not had anybody say that they've beaten me yet. I don't think anybody's as nerdy or weird as me to actually do it. But in brief, you need to start out at the end of one of the lines. So let's pick line 17 because that's out at the end of line 10 and 2.
Is that one of the newer ones?
So 17, it's one of the newer ones.
Yeah.
It's out. You're gonna get me on various station names now, but it's the one that goes all the way down to the southwest, out to Zhujiajiao,
right,
and out to some of the water towns. So what you do is you start out on that. You just go one station out on that line, and then you travel that one station. So you've done line 17, tick, and then you can switch to either line 2 or 10 at Hongqiao Railway Station, and then come in, and then so basically I do that. And I used to come in on line 10 because that goes south, but now what I do is I go on line 2, which takes longer, but then you can do 3, 4 in one go, and I'll keep it brief. Yeah. You can then do all of the other lines, and you kind of end up way out on the east side. So I've done it 3 times. The first 2 times there was no line 14. Line 14 is the most recent line that we've got. Line 14 is a insert polite word. Line 14 is a bit of a nuisance because it's not near any of the other lines that were on the most efficient network.
It goes out to the football stadium.
It does. Yeah. It goes east-west. I think it's supposed to be a line 2 kind of relief line, but line 2 is still the busiest line. In short, I've done it twice on line without line 14, and I think it was something like 3 hours 45. Then it was 3 hours 25. And then I've added line 14, and it's gone up to 3:35. Okay, but that's 18 lines, not 17. 3:35 can definitely be beaten because the third time I did it, I was not lucky. I was never lucky. There was never a train at the station, jump on. It was always wait for the train, wait for the train. Right. So 3:35 can be beaten. I challenge everybody to do it. Yeah, 3:35, come and beat it. And I'm not the fittest guy, and there's a lot of time wasted on the interchanges. So I used to have Yishanlu, line 4 to line 9. What a bugger. That's a long trek. And a lot of the interchange stations are still long treks. So anybody that's super fit, you can't use a scooter. If you had a skateboard or a scooter, that would be...
What's the one on line 2? That's a huge one. You've got to actually go across the road.
West Nanjing.
Yeah.
Well, that's lines 2, 12, and... that's 2, 12, and 13.
Okay.
And they're on each side of a block. I mean, you have to exit and walk a lot. Yeah. The route I have at the moment doesn't need any external transfers.
Right, so you just get off and...
But there's still some real buggers. There's still some really difficult transfers. And some of them are new. Some of them... There's one that's... I want to say 813, but I'm sure that's wrong, and somebody will have a go at me. But some of even the new station transfers super long.
Right.
So you lose a lot of time there. I'll do it again. I want to beat my 3:35 because I wasn't lucky.
The challenge is on now.
Yes, and anybody, please post your times. I want to see some challenging. A lot of people say to me, "Okay, how can we make this more interesting? How can we involve alcohol as well?" And it's like, well, okay, what do you mean? There's 18 lines, 18 drinks.
4 hours. Yeah.
Well, so like I said, I mean, 3:35 with all 18 lines at the moment, numbered lines, no Jinshan, no Maglev, no Pujan line, none of this rubbish. And people are like, so you want to involve booze? What are you supposed to do? Challenge number 1. Every time you change lines, you need to exit the station, find the nearest bar, and have a drink. It's like, do you know where some of these interchange stations are? They're in the middle of nowhere, so no, that's not going to happen.
That's tough.
Option number 2 is every time you do an interchange, you find not a bar, but at least a shop that will sell a beer, so a Lawson's, okay? But again, remember, that's 18. What are you going to do?
That's
18 tinnies?
Yeah.
Well, you're not going to do it in 3 hours. You're going to need 6 or 7. I personally think, so my option 3, I think this is the best way of blending these two pursuits is a shot on an even line, and the smallest Qingdao you can get on the odd line. Even, did I say even the first time? So, shots and beers. But the trouble is, that means clanking around the metro with all of these. So
trying to go through security
yes.
every.
But that to me feels the best way of doing it. You know, is it possible to do 9 shots and 9 dumpies in something like 5 hours? Yes, but it's going to be that's going to be messy as hell.
This could be turn up into like an amazing race. You could like get some
Sure.
sponsors and do this like as legit.
And also be stopped by the Chinese transport police about halfway through. Yeah, no, exactly. I'm willing to give that a try if anybody's interested. But yeah, that's going to probably need bags with wheels on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great challenge and was one that stood out for me. But the other one, the recent one that you've put out and you told me about it, The Emperor of the Sun.
Yes.
It says 37
years ago. That's right. Yeah.
When the movie come out?
No, right. So the movie was shot. Yes, the movie was shot 37 years ago.
Right.
So this was The Empire of the Sun, which was a semi-autobiographical tale written by J.G. Ballard, who lived here in Shanghai in like the 1935-40 period, and it was all about his boyhood history. And he was living out on Panyulu, near the cinema out there, Panyulu Xinhualu, which is where his boyhood home was, which is quite well known. It's kind of a club there. But what I wanted to do was to like match shots with all of the Shanghai-based all of the Shanghai-based filming locations that were used in the movies. His home in the movie was actually in Kent in the UK, so that wasn't shot here in Shanghai. So there was things like the cathedral in Shujiahui, St. Ignatius. Yes. There's the Bund is used in the movie. The Peace Hotel is used, but the externals was actually a slightly different location. And they were behind the Park Hotel and they were along Suzhou Creek. So overall, there was about 4 or 5 locations used in the city. Steven Spielberg, it took something like a year for him to negotiate filming here in the city. And he did the filming here in 3 weeks. So, I mean, I don't know, but I kind of feel that there was limitations.
Yes.
It's like, right, you've got this much time and you've got these many places.
Go.
And, take it or leave it. Take it or leave it. Yeah.
Interesting. It really looks like you're really into the history of Shanghai as a whole. And do you feel that it is helping tourism here, like for the foreigners especially?
I'd like to think so.
You're getting some major hits on this.
Yeah, that one did pretty well. I try to put a YouTube video out about once a week. My subject matters change a little bit. I did transport mainly, so the metro, and I do like tram systems. People go really nerdy for trams.
Yes.
The Jiaxiang tram got 10k views.
That was
yes.
Next,
okay. Well, I'll leave that right there then. Yeah. But people really go for the transport, and I think that's because they're interested in seeing China developing. The transport system is well known to be like world class, and it's new and developing. But also, it kind of gives people the ability to see what normal life is like. Getting off on and off trains and just seeing how things are. So that's where I started, and I didn't used to be so consistent. A bus here or a tram there or a metro line. What I've been trying to do recently is to actually put a video out once a week. Right. And the Empire of the Sun video has been part of that, as well as the Longhua airport video as well. So that's another historic one.
You're ticking off my list here.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You're right.
Back to your question specifically. Yeah, I love the history of the city, social history. Just because there's so much of it, and obviously the city has changed a lot over the last 100, 120 years.
Because it wasn't a major city, like a big city, metropolitan.
Well, no, absolutely not. I mean, it was. We can
it's
still
only been like the last 30 or 40 years, maybe.
Well,
even less.
Okay, so now you'll be testing my real knowledge of the city, but certainly there was a lot of international settlement here as early as about the 1820s,
Yes.
30s and 40s. You know,
I've
that's
heard that.
kind of, where it started. So the overall history is a lot longer than like 20 or 30
And
years.
entertainment was very important here in that period, right?
So if we go back to, I mean, one of the oldest buildings that at least I know of, and by the way, collaboration is kind of the name of the game in all of these things. If people really want to know about the history of the city, then there's a society, there's the Historic Society, which is mostly hosted by Patrick Cranley and his wife, and there's other collaborators that they have. But, he's the real expert on history in the city. But one of the buildings that I think kind of gives us a real idea of a date is the Astor House Hotel. I don't have any notes in front of me, by the way, but the Astor House Hotel, I think it started in something like 1856 or something like that. But where it is right now, opposite the Russian Consul General, I don't think it was there until something like a little bit later, something like the 1870s. So that gives us an indication of when things really were starting colonially. So let's say the 1870s, 1880s. But things really got going around about the 1920s, 30s, 40s. The Art Deco period, Laszlo Hudek, things like the Broadway Mansions building. I think that's 1934, if I'm right. So that's where things really got going. So certainly in the 1920s, 30s, 40s are the period, and obviously running up to the Japanese invasion and the Second World War, and that's where the J.G. Ballard Empire of the Sun area is.
Right.
And a lot of those matched shots that I did, a lot of those were actually quite easy. Everybody knows St. Ignatius, everybody knows the Bund. The hardest one for me to find, oddly, was a couple of shots that they did behind the Park Hotel. As soon as I saw a part of the building, it's like, oh, right, yeah, there it is. Yeah. And then on that junction, there's one building where I call it the ambush scene, where I think it's some Chinese rebels ambushing the invading Japanese army. I think I got that the right way around. Yeah. And I was on the junction and I thought, that looks like the right building. And so I went into the building to use the elevator. It's an old building, obviously. There was a security guard on the front door, stop, where are you going? In Chinese, my Chinese is poor. And there was a list of floors and offices going up to, I think, floor 5 or 6. Yeah. And so I just said, I know somebody on floor 4. Right. Just picked floor 4 at random. And so the security guard was like, yeah, right. So he got in the elevator with me. And so we went up to floor 4, and there was kind of an office to the right. Maybe there was one to the left. I went right, walk in, and there was a load of people, not speaking so much English, and me with my broken Chinese, what are you doing here? And so I just said in English, I said, look, I'm really sorry. Is there anybody here that speaks English? Yeah. And a lady came out from a back office, perfect English, thank you very much, and said, what's going on? Yeah. And so I said to her, again in English, look, I'm really sorry. I don't want to waste your time. I've told the security guard that I know you. Obviously, I don't. I'll just go. And she was like, yeah, but why are you here? And it's like, well, briefly, Empire of the Sun was shot on your building's roof, and so that's what I wanted to see. Oh, right, okay. She talks to the security guard, yes, I know this guy. Security guard goes. And then she's like, right, tell me more. And so 2 or 3 minutes, explain it a little bit more in detail. Right, let's get up onto the roof. She goes down. We go down, get the same security guard that was, not believing me and wanting to throw me out because I didn't know these people. And she got him to get the keys. And so we went up onto the roof, and I had the Empire of the Sun on my phone, so I matched the shots there and then. Actually, no, that's not true. Sorry, I went back. I did 1 or 2 rough matches and then went back a few weeks later. And they were really enjoying it. And she got some of her colleagues. When I went back, she got 2 or 3 of her colleagues from her office to come, because they'd been working there, unbeknownst that Steven Spielberg had been on the roof. And they were looking, when we opened the door a second time, she was showing all of her office colleagues around, and so that's when I managed to match those shots. So I thank her greatly for allowing me to get those shots.
And who knows, that could have opened up a whole new market of people that have never seen the movie before.
I mean, maybe. I mean, the movie, we have to remember that the movie is 37 years old itself, and it's depicting, if I get my maths right here, it's depicting something that was 46 years older than the movie date. Right. So obviously it's not half and half, but it's just interesting to think that way, that the movie is almost as old as the point in history it was depicting. So I kind of think of the movie as a bit of an historical document in itself. There's no high-rise buildings, there's no CGI in the movie. Actually, that's not true. There was an Industrial Light and Magic aeroplane shot over the Peace Hotel, was very rudimentary, CG. Yeah. And you've got the young Christian Bale. You've got Christian Bale, as in, Batman. He's there at 13 years old.
Wow.
I don't think it was his first role. He'd been on stage before and probably in a movie or two, but it was obviously his initial breakout role. With Steven Spielberg. Yeah. And the behind-the-scenes documentary was really interesting as well. And so you see that obviously Steven Spielberg wanted Christian Bale to be quite energetic. It's a war movie. And you can see that he's getting him to jump up and down, build up the adrenaline. And so that's why he gives these really sort of dramatic, shots. So, I tell anybody that comes to Shanghai to watch Empire of the Sun, mainly because there's still actually quite a lot that you see in the movie that's still here. Like I said, St. Ignatius. J.G. Ballard actually didn't go to St. Ignatius Church School. He went to the Holy Trinity. But again, I think maybe Steven Spielberg was limited on the places that he could shoot. But if you come here, watch that movie and watch my YouTube video, and then you can find the places if that's your bag. You were saying earlier, I like historic things. It's that social history that's interesting.
Yeah. And was it critically acclaimed? Like, did it win awards?
It might have won something in the technical points.
Right.
There's obviously a lot of aircraft work in the movie. Yeah. And as I said in my YouTube video, the vast majority of the aircraft work was all models. Ooh. And when you first watch it, you don't notice that at all. Yeah. I mean, obviously, the planes on the ground were life-size, and some of them were dressed up to be Japanese, even though they were originally not Japanese. American planes then dressed to be Japanese Zeros, I think. But a lot of the actual flying was model work. And there's an excellent YouTube video of one of the flyers, which I link to in my YouTube video. Yes. And it's a really interesting watch. And they have I think, is it a B-51 bomber? They have a really large model. And they were really proud of it. And it totally got cut from the movie. And J.G. Ballard is in the movie, in the colonial party scene early on in the movie, and he got totally cut from the movie. So it's like, weird. But the plain modeller's video is a joy to watch.
Interesting. And we talked about it a little bit before about you've got like a city public transport video and the new Jiaxing train system?
Jiaxing. So it's becoming a little bit harder to know what to do YouTube videos about. My videos tend to be in 3 different areas, if I didn't mention this before. So one is in transport, so trams, trains, metros. One is in kind of like Shanghai general tourism, and I suppose I would lump the Empire of the Sun into that, because that's really what it is. And then another one is expos. So we get a lot of exhibitions here in Shanghai. And they are, dare I say it, they're really easy videos to do because they're linear in time. So you go to the expo, snap, 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 and then when you're editing, which is the real pain of any YouTuber's life, if you do the editing yourself, which is what I do, at least with an expo, you can just top and tail, delete the shots that are rubbish, and you're done.
Got it.
Post it.
Yeah.
And I thought they were going to be really popular. What with constraints of travel that we've had recently. Hey, look at the expo. You don't need to fly. I'll show you around.
Got it.
My YouTube channel is going to take off because everybody's going to want to watch that and not travel. No. You can put surveys out on YouTube now, and I put a survey out saying, should I stay the same, concentrate on expos, history, or transport? And everybody said, stop doing the expos, Tim.
Oh, there you go.
So there you go. So I've stopped doing that. To your point, so yeah, the Jiaxing tram, what I'm having to do, because I've mostly covered Shanghai, is look around Suzhou, Hangzhou, Jiaxing, and that's quite a new tram system. And I'm getting more and more involved in Ningbo. So I'm going to start focusing a little bit more there as well. So I'm spreading out a little bit, doing public transport surrounding Shanghai, but also trying to continue to do at least some Shanghai videos as well, like the Metro Challenge, maybe some other challenges. I've also thought about maybe doing some videos of classic expat social locations. I'm trying not to say pubs and bars, because I mean restaurants as well. And partly because, as we know, there's been a lot of pressure on that sector, and we've had a lot of closures. So I just think it would be quite nice from an historic perspective to take some videos of the places that we still have. Hopefully they remain open, but if they close, then at least we've got a record of those.
Got it. Why Shanghai?
Okay, that's an interesting question. I've historically always worked for the same company. 32 years I worked for a company. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. 32 years I worked for an engineering company called IMI, which historically stood for Imperial Metals Industries. It was an offshoot from ICI, Imperial Chemical Industries, in about 1956 or something like that. And they are an engineering company that produces various solutions, but often based in fluid power, so pneumatics, or heating, ventilation, air conditioning, HVAC, and also into the energy sector as well. Right. So I've been around the world. I'm very thankful to have worked for them for a long time. And during my tenure with them was in the UK for quite a bit, and also America, Croatia, Sweden, Germany, Poland, not always living in these places, but often visiting them. And in early 2006, there was a guy fairly high up in the organisation said, we've got a factory over in Shanghai, China, Tim. My background is both quality and design engineering. And he wanted somebody to kind of make sure that the factory was okay from a quality perspective. Right. Back in 2006, things were different then. Is the China manufacturing good? Is the quality good? A lot of questions there. We now know that Chinese manufacturing is fantastic. Look at the EV sector. Everything that they do is pretty good, but not necessarily back in 2006. So why Shanghai? I was part of this organisation and was basically asked, would you come out here? So I did that for 2 years, then went over to Slovenia, Croatia for 3 years to do a bit of design management work. That was a new acquisition, so it was kind of that steering position again. And then we got to 2011 and I was asked to come back here again, a little bit more on the quality side rather than the design side. So
you're shooting around some very interesting cultures and
right. Yes, and it was super interesting. Being here has been very interesting, seeing the various changes that were going on. But again, in Slovenia, Croatia, I was there when Slovenia was in the EU, but Croatia was still outside. And I actually lived in Zagreb, because it's 800,000 people, and the town I was living in, Slovenia, called Brežice, was 10,000. Right. So it's a very small town.
Yeah.
So I used to cross the border every day on the way to work, and I used to get a stamp in my passport.
Yeah.
So I got through 2 48-page passports in
Right.
3 years. And the border guards, they would recognise me.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I used to have a motorbike, and I once got stopped in St Mark's Square in Zagreb with a motorbike, 800cc VFR Honda, which you're not supposed to do. And I took my crash helmet off, and it was like, oh, you're the border guy, you know. So, yeah. And I kind of joke, and again, this is a dangerous joke here, because I had like this estate car. It was like an estate Ford Focus, and I kind of say, and I never got stopped. I never got searched. You know, slightly older guy driving a boring car. You know, it wasn't like a flashy, you know, BMW or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I kind of said to people, after 3 years, I think this was after I'd finished, if anybody had wanted to smuggle anything over the EU border, they should have just used me, because, you know, in 3 years I must have crossed the border like what 365 times 3 minus the weekends, probably 1,000 times, and I never got searched. So you know,
What are they doing?
dangerous areas that we are talking about now.
Yeah.
But it was lovely. Slovenia is fantastic. Slovenia is like an unknown jewel. I was way over on the east side. I'm sorry to my friends in Bredžice, but the landscape there is not as interesting as the west side. Right. The western side of Slovenia, oh my word. I mean, it's the end of the Alps. It's the eastern side of the Alps. I think they call them the Julian Alps there. But and again, I'm not going to try pronouncing or remembering any of the town names. But it's a fantastic. I mean, Ljubljana is the capital city, and that's mostly on the west side.
And then going back even further, you're born in England? Whereabouts?
In the UK, yes.
Whereabouts?
So I was born in Buckinghamshire, so
Right.
South Bucks. There's a town called Beaconsfield. It's about 4 or 5 miles from Windsor.
So we talked about this earlier. My next question would be, who's your football team?
Yeah. Damn you.
Yeah.
So something I used to joke with some friends of mine was that there should almost be a guidebook on what will the Shanghai taxi driver want to talk to you about. Because you get in and you say, right, I'm English or British. We should say British, but they say Ingwaran. And of course, you get into a taxi as an Englishman, and it's like, right, tell me about football.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid to say it's just not one of my passions. I'm into F1 and a little bit of rugby, but not football. And then I would have to see how long I could bullshit for, you know, like, before he would rumble it. You didn't.
What was your major at Nottingham?
So at Nottingham, I did production engineering and production management to a master's degree level. And it was one of these degrees where they just let you do that. It was like, you don't have to stop at 3 years, you know, you can just keep going to 4. And it kind of confuses people here in China, especially if you're going for a work visa. It's like, right, there's my master's degree. It's like, yeah, okay, where's your bachelor degree? It's like, I don't have one. What do you mean you don't have a bachelor degree? You know, and you have to explain. But yeah, that's what I did. And it was essentially, it's engineering, but it's engineering with a lot of manufacturing input as well. So it was about, where do you put your factory? How do you run your factory? And, you know, so it was kind of work-based engineering.
So where does photography fit into that?
And again, a good question. I've always had a bit of a creative element. Yeah. I mean, I'm old enough to have done A-levels aren't that old. I did O-levels. I'm old enough to have done O-levels. I did A-levels as well, and I did maths, physics, and business studies. And I wanted to do art as well.
Right.
And I was kind of advised by the school. That's a bit weird. You know, why would you do?
How convenient they don't want you to do art.
Yes.
Does any school want you to do art?
But Tim, why do maths, physics, business studies, and art? So I've kind of always had this kind of dual thing going on. I'm not going to be flowery and say a split personality. That's just weird. But I've always had this thing of wanting to do at least something creative. And I think that kind of bears out in what I do. So it's like drone photography. There's this technical element. Yeah. The photogrammetry thing. I was kind of into web design and graphic design. So kind of always trying to blend, you know, I was a 3D CAD designer for years, you know, in the chair. And, you know, at lunchtimes I would try and make that creative, make it look interesting.
And is that something that you want to push forward to make that a career, or is it still like a hobby?
I'd love to. A lot of people have said I'm probably going to be going back into engineering.
Oh.
I've been out of IMI for about a year or so, and I'm currently in the process of going back into.
And what was that like, having a year off?
Well, that year is kind of what actually bore out the photography.
Yeah.
Before, I mean, dare I say it, my wife, was worried I would be taking on too much of a risk by funding the exhibition. And I said to her, no, it's worth doing. And it certainly, dare I say it, it paid for itself financially. And it also got my name out there a little bit more, if you like. So without the time that I had on my hands, I probably wouldn't have done it at all. So is it something that I would like to pursue? Absolutely. Is it something that I feel can totally pay for itself? Not really. We're living in a world which is increasingly tough, and we've got AI imagery and all sorts of things. So I'd love to. I would love to, but at the moment I'm kind of trying to do it still as a sideline.
Yeah.
Whether I'm selling myself out or not,
But it's
who
something
knows?
to fall back on, and it's not going to make. Yeah, you're always going to be creative in that.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes. And if things do continue to move towards Ningbo, as I've kind of indicated, I'll stay in engineering, but I certainly will continue the photography. I'd love to make some success out of the photogrammetry element. That's tough.
Yeah.
If anybody has a good idea for modelling things with multiple photos, the short form for me is buildings for architects, or kids that can stand still for 8 minutes, and then as your kid is growing up, or pets, But again, they need to sit still. Or you could have a cage of multiple cameras, and you just go click, and you take multiple. So I certainly will continue in the field of creativity. Absolutely, yeah.
Excellent. So, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Oh damn! Well, stick at it. I don't think I'm paraphrasing there. I kind of indicated earlier that I am honoured to be considered a decent enough artist to exhibit and for people to buy my art. Really proud of that fact. And the best bit of advice probably isn't one person saying one thing, but several people saying, but you are an artist. Stop saying that you're lucky in the images that you take. The art speaks for itself. Your photos speak for themselves. So that's probably an amalgam of several people saying several things. Would be my answer to your cliche.
Right. If you were able to go back in time and visit your younger self, what advice would you give him?
Gosh, damn. I often wonder if I made the right decision on coming here to China. I was asked by the company, would you go out to China that first time? Would you go out to China?
About 2 years, yeah.
That was the 2-year stint in basically 2006 and 7. And I thought about it for a couple of days, and I said, actually, I'm not sure about going to China. That's maybe a little bit too much.
Out there, yeah.
So can I say no? But please keep me on the list of considered, because I'd only ever worked in the UK up until then. And this is back when people really didn't move around the globe that much, or at least as engineers. Yeah. So I said, well, look, can I say no, but please keep me on the list of potential other countries like Europe. And I was shocked when my boss at the time said no. It was just a flat no. And it was like, well, no, I've gone out of my way to choose you because you're the right guy with the right skill set to go to China and be the quality overseer. And if you're not going to reciprocate and accept that and agree, then you go to the back of the line.
But is that where you met your wife?
Not on that
that
stint. That was
it.
after Slovenia and then coming back again. So I can't remember the exact wording of your question, but basically going back to my former self and saying,
what would you say to him?
I probably would say, I guess overall, yes, you did make the right decision. Be bold, because what would the alternative have been? No, I'm not going to go to China. Please keep me on the list. No, we're not going to do that. Right, okay, I'm going to sit on my hands and stay in Bristol being a CAD engineer for the rest of my life. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Other people have done that. But by saying yes, that was the first step on my journey to see that list of countries that I gave you earlier. The China, honestly, that company got me around to Korea, Japan, China, Sweden, Poland, Germany, Slovenia, Croatia, Switzerland, America, Mexico, India, Singapore, Australia. So all of these, Sydney and Melbourne.
Good on you.
So
I'm just north of
all
Sydney.
of these places. And if I'd have said no, then it would probably be like, well, you can stay in Bristol.
So hello to all our friends
Yes.
back at home. So social medias. Again,
Right.
just tell us where we can find you, like for international and Chinese. So you
Okay.
like your WeChat and whatnot.
Gotcha. So yeah, I mean, obviously I'm on WeChat. You'll find me there through probably going to an exhibition and finding a QR code is the best way there. Website, like I said, www.timchambers.me. That's mainly focused on the photographs. There are links there through to my YouTube video. That's where I'm trying to focus a lot of the international social media is on YouTube. It's a tough gig nowadays to grow, but I'm about to go through 6,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. Easiest way to find me there is probably just searching Tim Chambers Metro. There's another more famous Tim Chambers who is the saluting Marine, but I am starting to get into some of the Chinese ones, so Xiaohongshu, I'm on there as well. Yep. Again, it's just Tim Chambers.
And what does the future hold for Tim Chambers?
The future for me is getting back into a new job, staying in creativity, learning a lot more about Ningbo specifically, and also trying to get into the other Chinese social media spaces that we touched upon, Xiaohongshu, Bilibili, etc.
Because obviously we have certain restrictions here in China with the YouTube and
yeah, absolutely.
So
yes. I work together. Last collaboration I'll mention is, I work often with Ned Kelly of That's Shanghai, and I kind of helped him out, in that period 2 or 3 years ago.
Is he Australian?
No, he's British.
Oh, okay. Because he's got a very famous Australian name.
Oh, well, of course, I know. yes, of course. Sorry. But he.
No, I didn't make that as a joke. Okay. I just assumed.
But no, you're right. Yes. His, it's not even a pseudonym. It's the same name. But I kind of helped him out 2 or 3 years ago when not so much was going on with some content for That's Shanghai, and I'm kind of guessing that's why he's kind of helping me. It's quid pro quo. He's helping me promote my Empire of the Sun videos, and we're talking about a collaboration. I've got something like 7 videos that cover Shanghai, not transport, but the Bund, and I kind of call it Shanghai for free. It's just a hook, but I do the Bund and People Square and places you can go without spending any money. But I'm not deliberately trying to do it on the cheap. It's just you can look around all the buildings on the Bund for free. You can. Look around People Square, for free, and so we're going to work on a sequence of editions together with That's Shanghai in the near future.
Great, well done.
There you go.
Shanghai, that's Shanghai.
That's Shanghai. There you go.
Yeah, that's a big push.
Well, yeah. I hope, I hope that works well.
So, as of today, who are your 2 or 3 top favorite musicians or artists?
Mike Oldfield's sister, Sally Oldfield. She's actually a really interesting and good artist in her own right. So she's recently popped up on my Discover. This isn't news stuff, so it doesn't really answer your question.
No. It's your choice.
And then the other one's turning up in my Discover Bronski Beat
All right.
and Kajagoogoo. So
Come on.
it seems like I'm stuck in the 80s. Now,
Nothing wrong with that.
before everybody really worries, it's not. Oh, there's Fun Boy 3 as well. Oh my word! So T-Rex, Eric Clapton,
There you go.
Ian Dury and the Blockheads. Hit me with your rhythm stick.
Oh, there
So
you
that is this week's Discover Weekly. Now I'm not totally stuck in the 80s, but I won't be able to come up with I don't know, Dua Lipa. There you go.
There you go. Your top 2 or 3 favorite movies?
I have to say Empire of the Sun. And I am a science fiction nerd,
Yes.
so Alien and Blade Runner,
Ooh.
the original, will always be way up there.
Very nice. Last question. Who's your greatest inspiration / hero and why?
From the technical perspective, I'd say probably somebody like Alan Turing. So I guess a bit of that I'm picking from the technical part. Obviously, he did a great service for the UK as far as the breaking the Enigma code and working at Bletchley Park, which is very close to where I grew up. And as we know, there was also some social history there as well, with him being homosexual, and then the government actually forced him to go through chemical castration, and he ended up committing suicide, or was it potentially poisoning? So, sorry, there's a little bit of dark history there, but certainly a very interesting character, because he must have lived in very difficult times. So he's being asked to do so much for his country and not necessarily being duly recompensed by the country itself.
Thank you very much, Tim.
Okay, thank you, Rich.
I really
Craig.
appreciate your time. I really love your art, your
Thanks.
artwork. Continue doing that, and
Thank you.
all the best.
Great, thanks a lot, Craig. Yeah, it was really enjoyable.
Hi, I'm Nigel the Shanghai Psychic. I can tune into your loved ones in the spirit world, but I can also tune into you, tell you about your path and the choices that you need to make and need to know. I'm currently giving 30% discount on all Tell Craig Your Story listeners. Just use the code Tell Craig Your Story for 30% off your first psychic reading with me online at Nigel the Shanghai Psychic.